this is an incredible. I mean, it may be the highest expert group of NDI experts that we've had on the show, or almost anybody's had on the show. So we're really here to answer your questions about NDI. There is an enormous number of questions backlogged. So I'm going to remind you in the first hour, you got to vote on these questions. You got to make sure that you get your voice in, because there are more questions than we will get to in the hour. Quick introductions, just so you know who is here. Roberto Musso is the technical director of NDI at NDI.video. He is coming in from his OB van. Roberto has a daily exchange with the NDI community, documenting new ideas and standards involved in technical, and he's also involved in technical supports for large projects and relaying customer concerns. Lenny Nelson is the studio lead at VizRT. Lenny serves as the head of studio at VizRT, overseeing all corporate graphic design and video production needs. From town halls to trade shows, he's been utilizing and demonstrating NDI since its inception. Elias Perunin is the author of Memorable, Profitable, and Virtual. Elias has been using NDI to produce virtual and hybrid conferences for clients across Canada. He also writes tools for the cross-platform multi-view for NDI. Jeff Keithley is the chief problem solver for the systems integrator Pizzazz, at pizzazz.com. He has the experience using NDI since before it was called NDI. And he has produced many 100% NDI events, both on-prem and in the cloud. And some of these events with literally hundreds of NDI streams flying around the cloud. Oliver Breidenbach is the CEO of Boinks Software. And Oliver is an early adopter and huge fan of NDI, with Memo Live being one of the first Mac applications to support NDI since 2017. And Fintan McCurran is the leading systems integrator for NDI Solutions idealsys.com in the APAC region. So we truly have a global expert group here to talk NDI. And unless anyone wants to say something immediately, I'm just going to jump into the questions, because we are knee deep, waist deep, maybe even neck deep with questions about NDI. Everyone's really excited to have all of you here. So let's go ahead and jump into the first question.
First question is from John Foltz in Salinsgrove, Pennsylvania. I use our college IT network for sports with NDI. A 1 gigabyte switch is at football and 10 gigabit switch is at the studio. I want more cams and return feeds, but have limited dollars for upgrade switches for now. Suggestions to improve performance.
I'll go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, so first of all, I would never recommend to use the IT network to do NDI, just because it has a lot of potential of being disrupted by other services that run on the same network. On the other hand, if you have to save on the IT network or on the bandwidth of the network, you should consider going from full NDI to NDI-HX, which allows you to use a lot more sources through your 1 gigabit and 10 gigabit switches. And that might be the cheapest way to upgrade your network, is just reduce the load that's on it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Sure. I would disagree with you on the IT network. If you can have a good IT staff that you can work with and a good relationship with that staff, you can definitely make NDI work across the college network. We do that for several of the locations that we both produce in ourselves, but also that we manage and help them with their NDI network and producing their games. They're all over the campus. They're already interconnected. It just makes sense to use the network that's already there. The difference is you have to be able to communicate to them what the needs are for NDI. So train yourself under NDI. Make sure you understand what are all the different pieces of NDI that need to be set up and down on the switch. And then from that point, leverage it. That's what it's there for. That's the whole beauty of it. Regarding getting more feeds coming back, if you are already topping out, say a 1 gigabit switch should be able to do, or a 1 gigabit link should be able to do somewhere between 6 and 8 full resolution NDI sources. If you are already topping that out, I would say immediately go to a 10 gigabit backbone. If that could be done, if you don't have the connection from that 1 gigabit to the 10 gig is not capable of doing it, then another option would be to lag 2 lines together across the network, or 3 or 4, whatever, to get you a little bit more bandwidth. One of the beautiful things about NDI is for good and for better for worse, is you can actually have two NICs on a computer, for instance, connected to the NDI network, and both of those NICs will be able to use NDI in and out. The part is that whatever you're connected to, so the switch you're connected to has to have that kind of capacity also. So if you're using two 1 gigs, but you only have a 1 gig uplink from that small switch to the larger switch, that's not really going to help you. So a lag between switches, get a little bit more bandwidth. I love NDI HX3 more so than 2. Definitely not 1. Never was a fan. I could always see the difference. So I would stay in the high res if you can, and just manipulate your network better. Best thing you can do is update your switch, though.
Roberto?
Oh, so I think that the best answer is moving to NDI HX. I mean, there are so many products out there that support NDI HX, and so this is probably the best answer.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, is there any device that can embed, de-embed NDI audio onto a Dante network?
Go ahead, Jeff. We can't hear you, Jeff.
Sorry about that. I had 2 buttons to click. There is an NDI share that a share off my NDI network that is showing the NDI processing engine from Sienna, and it has a Dante input now and Dante output module. So that is one way. And the other is this device for something smaller, maybe that you don't need to do 64 by 64 channels, is by Magewell, and it'll connect and go on the network as NDI, and you can actually bring analog audio in and out. I will say, though, the Magewell box is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Standard. As far as like the connector it uses is probably the worst connector ever. It's a tip ring sleeve or something like that. It's like a whole bunch of rings on a 1/4-inch tip, and you're not going to find one of those. There's no Radio Shack anymore, right? So you're not going to find one of those at Best Buy. The break in and out cable is not pretty, but it will do Dante to NDI and NDI out. So that would be another option there.
Jeff, do you know if Llama Audio supports NDI audio?
Yes, Llama does, and also OnHertz does also. Llama has, with their Connect product, will be able to flip between NDI audio into Dante. And that Connect product that is there is they actually are have that available, and I think it's as low as like $250. So the lower level is pretty efficient for price point.
And if you're watching the show, we had Llama Audio on a couple weeks ago. So definitely check that. It was a great second hour. Go ahead, Roberto.
So yeah, on my side, I'm using Llama Connect. Is amazing. I mean, the amount of thing that you can do simultaneously inside this software application is just unbelievable. It supports multiple sound cards simultaneously, so you cannot do only NDI to Dante in and out, but you can do NDI Dante and another ASIO sound card for monitoring. You can just plug an headset in adding another audio sound card, and then you do NDI into any kind of sound card out, and vice versa. It is a very amazing and flexible product.
What was interesting when we talked to them, it's practically a mixer. It has enough. Right. It has an enormous amount of tools that are built into it. It's like a nodal mixer that happens to also do Connect. In fact, it sounded like that's what they originally thought people would use for mixing, but then audio engineers wanted all the stuff that they were using.
Yeah, and the fact that on top of this you can add the VST plugin. So if you need to do some audio processing, I mean, there are so many VST plugins out there, from very cheap to expensive, that can do so many things. Yeah. For example, I'm playing with Llama Mix and Llama Connect now during this week, and I create my own intercom just using NDI and Llama.
Right. Start building up mix minuses, and you're there, right?
Right.
Go ahead, Elias.
Seconding Llama, it's awesome. If you're willing to go the route of, I'm not sure how supported it is, you can also browse, I believe on AliExpress, when I was researching audio interfaces, there are a bunch of OEM devices that can do NDI to Dante back and forth. So that is another option.
Next question.
From the QR code on Oahu, Black Bear Marshall in Oahu is asking, heard someone here say you can use NDI for KVM control on some computer devices. Is that true? How do you do that?
Go ahead, Elias.
NDI screen capture that comes with NDI Tools. You can, once you launch it, you can right-click the icon in the taskbar on Windows and say KVM control. Warning though, if you do not launch screen capture in as administrator and you pop up something like event viewer or task manager, anything that requires admin privs, you will, the second that window comes into focus, the KVM will stop working. I don't recommend this for security reasons, but if you launch it as administrator, you basically get administrator KVM control over that machine. But that's, I believe that's Windows only. I don't know if Mac has KVM control yet via screen capture.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, echo exactly what Elias says. We use it all the time. We use it both on-prem here, and we also use it in the cloud. It is one of my favorite tools to use, and it's a combination of we can get to any machine here, whether it's an on-prem actual server. We've got a rack of 12 Dell servers back there, desktops that are running NDI capture, and we just log into them. It's quick. It's actually faster to get into that over Studio Monitor than it is to go in through Splashtop or Parsec or any of those other remote desktop services. And I have all the same functionality except for what Elias said. Whenever you get to really fine tune, if you need to do something deep into the settings or something, but for normal operations, it's perfect. The on-prem is great, a great experience, but off the virtual side too is I have a virtual machine cluster that's running, and each one of those are, I don't ever see them. I don't have physical displays on them. They're only accessed through NDI Studio Monitor, which then looks at their KVM. So yeah, use it all the time.
Go to Elias.
One last note, I have had issues on some laptops that have dual GPUs, like an Intel and an NVIDIA GPU. I believe the workaround I used is in Windows settings to force screen capture to run on the integrated GPU rather than the discrete so that I could actually have desktop control. I can't remember the exact laptop models we ran into that issue with, but just know that if you've got a laptop that's got two GPUs, your mileage may vary.
Good, Lenny. Oh, can't hear you, Lenny.
Sorry, I didn't unmute. One thing I'd like to add is one thing we do a lot in our demonstrations is we'll have a rack of equipment, for example, and we won't have any monitors connected to it. It's obviously running headless. So if you can get some HDMI spoofers, which we call them spoofers, emulators, so that will tell the GPU that basically there's something connected, and then it will broadcast that NDI signal over the network. So then you can use NDI KVM.
Go, Roberto.
So I think is a useful information is that the KVM is a metadata over the NDI stream, and this is very interesting. The KVM is and the KVM support explained that NDI support bidirectional metadata. No, so an NDI receiver can send back metadata to the transmitter to control the keyboard, the mouse, etc. And this work over internet with NDI Bridge. So this is very, very interesting.
Next question.
Next question is from Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida. Advice for controlling NDI quality of service across the internet.
Good, Jeff.
Well, there should not be QoS used in NDI implementations. It's not actually advised. So when you say QoS, like on the local LAN, you wouldn't want to use that. It's not advised. Proper setup is definitely advised, but you shouldn't have a QoS like the old school routers would have QoS for VoIP or whatever type of traffic. So don't use that part for sure. Over the internet, there's not a QoS for the internet. So you can't really factor that in either. If you were needing to transport NDI over the network, over the internet, then the ways to do that usually are by converting it to a mezzanine codec and sending it on its way. That's what NDI Bridge does. So if you have NDI Tools on two separate machines, use NDI Bridge to bring those sources over. Another product would be Sienna Cloud, which was one of the original type bridge type products, and we use that more extensively ourselves than bridge itself. NDI Sienna Cloud runs on just the CPU, whereas NDI Bridge, you do need a pretty beefy machine on either end, and you need GPU in that to really maximize your response out of that.
Go to Elias.
You can also run Bridge in do not transcode mode as well, so you technically can, it'll keep the format the exact same. Whatever you get in, it'll send, Bridge will blast out to the remote receiver, but most times you probably want to convert formats. And for transmitting over the internet as well, the latest version of NDI Tools Bridge has a latency adjustment mode. So if you're on a connection that's unreliable, or the remote end is on a connection that's unreliable, you can up the latency, trade a little bit of latency for more signal stability.
Next question.
From the QR code, Eric Hagen in Singapore is asking, the virtual input, virtual webcam in NDI Tools for Mac hasn't been updated to be compatible with macOS 14, meaning we need to jump through hoops to enable legacy compatibility. Is there a particular reason for this?
Roberto?
We are working on that. The reason is really R&D busy doing so many things for NDI.
Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, I can completely sympathize with that. We did have to do the conversion for MimoLive for the virtual camera support there, which you actually can use to input NDI sources into something if you don't want to use the NDI stock virtual camera. But it was a lot of work. It's not that great documented, and it's a pain in the ass to do that, and it's very strangely designed. So if without the proper documentation, it's really hard to figure out how this works, and so yeah, it puts a lot of resources on resource strain on a team that probably is already busy with other stuff.
Next question.
Tommy Shanson, St. Paul, Minnesota is asking, is Hiqnet Audio Architect able to connect with Dante using the BSS Blu interfaces?
I don't know if this is an NDI question, but I'll answer it really, really quickly. I believe it's designed to integrate BSS with all the other Harman products. And so I don't know if it handles it specifically, but the BSS, I have an 806 and a couple other ones, definitely handle Dante, and you may be able to use it there. So, but it is designed as an integrator tool between all of the Harman products, and that's how that works. Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway asks, what are the challenges with the backwards and forwards compatibility between NDI versions, and when do you suggest not to mix versions at all?
Elias?
Generally speaking, mixing and matching versions has been okay. The only time you may run into some issues is, for example, if you're using products that follow NDI 5 or before, and you're trying to receive HDR sources, could run into issues there. And HDR was introduced in NDI 6. The other issue I've run into with some of the older converters is that they will decode high bandwidth sources no problem, but the moment you throw an HX source at it, either HX2 or HX3, it'll just display nothing or blank screen or whatever its default is. It doesn't have the HX codec in it. So just be mindful of that if you are shopping around for some older gear.
Go ahead, Roberto.
So we are trying to offer full interoperability. Sometimes it's just not possible. I mean, what Elias described just now is one of the common issues that NDI users are finding when you have an NDI. So we support, in NDI, we support several codecs. We have our own codec SpeedHQ, but then we support H.264 and HAVC compression over the NDI HX stream. And so if a decoder is FPGA based, designed to decode SpeedHQ, cannot decode NDI HX. What we are trying to do is increasing the documentation. There is I would say a good section on the NDI website of documenting all this, and I think we are finalizing documentation about interoperability, because we really want to help the user to have a great user experience using NDI.
I have actually an HDR question. So NDI 6, of course, supports HDR. What switching application? What are the connecting tissue for that are supporting HDR? Because I think it's still coming for things like vector and so on and so forth. But what are the software applications that are able to take advantage of the HDR signal in NDI 6?
Oh, so we release. With NDI 6, we release immediately the SDK that support HDR. We are releasing now the FPGA support, because it was taking a little bit longer to write this code. I really don't know who is supporting today.
I think there's a chicken or egg. It's hard for them to build it until they do. But Jeff's got a comment there. But yeah, so I think that's what I was curious about, because we're really excited about the HDR support.
Oh yeah.
NDI 6. Yeah. Go ahead, Elias.
Yeah, decoding on day one, decoding and HDR is, I believe, with the basic SDK, you can get. It'll give you an SDR frame of an HDR source. You get that as part of the metadata when you get frames that, hey, this is using HDR. I added that to my own multi-view on day one. It doesn't display in HDR. It's just all SDR down the chain. And if I can do HDR one day.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these are it's using specifically, when we say HDR, HLG and the PQ curve. So it's not actually managing HDR10 or Dolby metadata. It's just simply putting that curve on, which is great. That's from a production perspective. HLG is really popular. I tend to lean towards the PQ curve because I think there's more data in the high, in the 25% and up. But anyway, it's interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Sienna processing engine is supporting in many of their modules the full NDI 6 with a HDR now. So we've got the updated versions, and it's pretty amazing.
Is it? I have a question about Sienna. Is it possible for Sienna to encode an HDR stream?
I'll check real quick. I'm not positive.
That is interesting.
Yeah, because and what's fascinating here is that someone has to be first. So NDI saying that now it's available makes a lot of sense. So now people have to spend the time to get the rest of the pieces together.
All right.
Finton?
Yeah, we're actually working with a manufacturer, and it's not out yet. But I think we're HDR, because a lot of discussion so far has really been kind of on the event and Pro AV stuff. I think the real uplift for HDR in NDI will come from the broadcast side, and the move of NDI into broadcast has been slowish, and I think what will happen is there will be a point at which the broadcasters will all decide, actually, you know what, everything is here and ready to go. HDR and the 10-bit color, announced at NAB, is one of those. There's another slight delay factor for broadcasters, though. And I think when VANC or ancillary data is resolved in NDI, then it's good for broadcast production in-house, and will be a full forklift replacement for legacy STI plant, and also will be a full lower cost alternative for SMPTE 2110. So, and I think the HDR will be a big one. There's a massive push, obviously in Europe and the US, for 4K channels and the whole lot. The reality is that HDR probably gives a better end result on HD than 4K for a lot more bang for buck. So in Asia, where the broadcast market is a lot more financially challenged, the next couple of tweaks in NDI, and I think VANC or ancillary data handling, which is a core.
And when you say that now, when you start using that VANC data, though, that VANC data is also carrying things like captions, right? Do those
It's
work
carrying
together?
captions, but more importantly for broadcasters, and especially in an Asia context, you get a lot of retransmission here. So we're on the day one of the Olympics here. There's a bunch of guys taking in satellite feeds of Olympics that all have the trigger data for the ad breaks, trigger data for all this. That's all in the bank. That's all in ancillary data.
And I guess I guess captions aren't as important outside the United States because in the United States they're legally required. So having bank data is really
you're on the open caption ones, and of course people like me, Irish people, tend to mess with the captions because the AIs can't keep up with our silly accents. But in the closed caption world, they're mandatory across all of Asia actually. So it's DVB subtitling in the main. So
but
it's
not for live.
box.
Is it for
not for live? No, not for live. But
there's a lot of languages that don't. You can't.
Well, there's a lot of languages here, and this is why broadcasting is complicated in Asia. We have there's broadcasters in Asia that will have one video asset with 6 audio pairs for different languages, so you can choose at least so 12 language tracks, right, in for the subtitling alone. So your ancillary data, it can be quite a chunky part of including your different audio tracks as well. So there's quite a lot going on. So that when a future version of NDI sorts this out, there will be that's when all the alarms will go off at NAB and IBC, and that day I think is on its way. But this is, of course, Roberto and his team of rocket scientists need to allocate some bandwidth to getting the version of NDI out that'll support this.
And it really is. I mean, this is really a pain point in general. Like when you think about it, even though NDI right now, NDI 6 is supporting HDR, it's not supporting the metadata necessarily, the PQ curve and the HLG curve, if I'm correct. But what's interesting is that's a real pain point in SDI because we can't figure. The reason HLG is so popular in SDI workflow is specifically because you don't want to try to figure out how to maintain metadata, on a scene by scene or frame by frame basis, all the way through the SDI pipeline. It seems like NDI would be more suited in 2110, at maintaining that data.
I think you're right. I think NDI needs to standardize it though, because the reality is NDI is very good at transporting data along with everything else, and you could jimmy rig your own VANC standard within NDI, if you were so inclined. It needs to be led from NDI, right? I
think it's exciting to talk about. I will say that I've done a lot of HDR solution, streams. The metadata is maybe 10% of the solution, at most. Having the curve is really what we need, and we can add that metadata right at the encode, and set our max CLLs and max fills there, and it usually is almost indistinguishable from a scene by scene or frame by frame.
We're getting close to the tipping point where NDI burns like wildfire into broadcast the way it did in AV in the last few years.
Yeah, go on, Oliver.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we don't have to wait for the broadcasters to support HDR because you can already stream to YouTube in HDR. So it may be closer than you think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can stream, you can build your own streams to do that. And YouTube, of course, accepts it. I believe that the YouTube, both 5.1 and HDR I think they may be somewhat device limited over the top solutions, but it's still, it's very cool. I mean, we've done YouTube live streams in HDR, and it is amazing. I would highly recommend doing it. We should do a whole nother second hour because we've gone a lot further there than we had in the past. Go ahead, Finton.
Yeah, just the last one. We're not waiting for the broadcasters on this. The broadcasters are waiting for NDI on this, so it's the other way around. NDI supports VANC data. Will be in faster than you can say Jiminy Cricket.
So this is all what will happen in the next NDI version. We are focused on metadata for broadcast.
Excellent. Next question.
John Volts in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. What tools do you prefer to monitor traffic and the performance of your NDI chain?
Go ahead, Finton.
Put me on the hop there. Again, talking about future stuff, because if we keep on saying Sienna for every answer, it's going to sound a bit repetitive. Obviously, Sienna have a solution here. Have a look the next time you're passing an NAB or an IBC. Have a look at what Leader are doing from Japan. They actually have a beta product which they're showing publicly, and it's not out there yet. So, and the point there, Leader obviously bought Fabrics a few years ago. Leader, one of the biggest Japanese kind of monitoring monitoring guys out there. So aside from the stuff that's going to be natively in the NDI free tools or in Sienna, you've got a lot of the manufacturers kind of coming around, and I think again, you're going to start to see a flood of products coming out from broadcast suppliers that don't want to be left out of the NDI market when the fire finally starts.
Go, Jeff.
There's been a couple of different developments that are happening that, just like Fenton was saying. One of those is from my friend Pablo at AV Sono, which I'm sharing on the screen now. That is a new network manager that's coming out very, very soon. We're in testing with him now, and that will allow you to run that on your network. It puts a little, I guess you call it an agent on each one of the machines that you need to monitor. You can monitor so much with it. So that is going to be an amazing tool to have, and it's very cost effective also. And then on the higher end, we actually do use Sienna Processing Engine. That's my favorite module in the whole engine, and that is this NDI Analyzer. And then in the advanced version now, because you can see, I guess you should be able to see down, you can see the timestamps, how much jitter is in the stream that's coming off the NDI, what format it is, what resolution it is, all the way down to what codec is being used. And it's a very, very powerful tool. One of the things about the advanced is it gives me an output, an NDI output. Now I could feed this, and you see the overlay there. I could feed that into a multi-view, and then I've got instant information for as many sources as I want to, because the multi-views are relatively limitless in the processing platform. So yeah, that's my suggestions.
Go ahead, Elias.
Shameless plug time. I've got a couple of tools.
I was like, if only we had someone that actually made the tools for it. Go ahead, Elias.
This is how I got started making tools. Is I wanted to diagnose and figure out why one of my NDI sources was misbehaving. And so I've got two things. I've got a bandwidth tester that basically you subscribe to a bunch of sources and it tells you how much bandwidth is coming in from those sources. It does it via IP address resolution. A little bit hacky, but it's okay. My NDI source browser as well, I added a frame reporter to it. So it will actually dump to a CSV file. When frames came in, it will give you the timestamps, it'll give you the time codes, it'll give you deltas, it'll give you when the software received that frame from NDI as well. So those tools, they're at agfin.gumroad.com, if I can drop a link. The other part to consider, though, of your NDI pipeline is not just network, but what you're going to be receiving your NDI sources on your computer. I've got some internal stuff that I've been working on. I'm not ready to share it publicly yet, but through just troubleshooting, and because the NDI SDK offers a ton of flexibility, but with that flexibility, sometimes, especially when it comes to pixel conversions, that can come at the expense sometimes of scalability as well. So don't just think about your network. Also think about the devices you're going to be decoding NDI on, especially if you're going to be doing it on a PC instead of dedicated hardware.
Roberto?
So we have an interesting free tool that is people can download NDI Analyzer. But I think there are many companies that are working on similar tool with UI, et cetera, honestly, and I was really pleased and surprised last NIB, and I think IBC last year to talk with Leader, because, I agree, Leader evaluating to support NDI in their instrument is big. So I was really pleased to talk with them.
Next question.
From Twim Sweat in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. I'm front of house volunteer lead for a church. Been using NDI on iPad into OBS, audio from X32. I want to NDI out audio and video to some areas like lobby and downstairs in kids' church area. Any recommended NDI out hardware for low latency?
Lenny?
There are many converters like this where you put your NDI signal in over the Ethernet, and if many of them are PoE, so that makes it really simple installation. And then you just connect an HDMI cable and plug it into your monitor. To get lower latency, I would suggest deploying or setting up a discovery server. That helps with reducing the traffic, so everything kind of talks to one place, and it also kind of reduces the amount of you can kind of control and shape your NDI network a little bit better.
Elias?
The absolute lowest cost way, we did this with the synagogue way back when, is just PCs running Studio Monitor. They don't necessarily have to be the fastest PCs in the world. It also depends on your definition of low latency. Like if the stream is going out to a room, say on a second or third floor, and they're not able to hear the actual sound going on, like the bleed over for live sound, then reusing an older computer can be great. Hardware converters are good. Again, just watch out. If you're using OBS, then you're going to be doing full bandwidth. So basically any converter is going to work. But again, if you're using any HX, if you're transmitting HX into a older converter, just watch out. You can get burned by that FPGA converter not supporting HX.
Roberto?
Yeah, small computer is very interesting, and thank you for mentioning this, Elias. I just received 1 week ago a small computer. The brand is Latte Panda, is a Chinese manufacturer, and they build this size is Windows, and so you just run Studio Monitor and you decode everything you want. And this product is something like $250. Unbelievable. This is a real revolution. Software is the future.
Yeah, and I will say that most large facilities that I work with, an NDI could be a good solution, are using a multicast solution with a multicast receiver, and they build their own multicast networks to do this. And this is deploying to hundreds of monitors, that go out. And so that multicast solution, you can have multiple channels that are being delivered there. So if you go to an arena, if you go to a stadium, if you go to a large golfing event like the Open or something like that, all those monitors have little boxes on the back that are very inexpensive, that are mission designed for this one thing. You plug a network into them and video pops out the other end. And again, you can have many. Oftentimes we're sending 20 or 30 different channels out to those things. And it's a pretty effective way to kind of solve that. Go ahead, Fintan.
Yeah, just on that, if you look at the church or the house of worship use case, which we've done exactly with that, with the throwdown boxes. Another use case that does exactly the same thing, which we found interesting, is we replaced the existing system on a ship so that the different research rooms within the ship could just tune in the different rovers underwater. So it was very James Cameron, actually. We loved the project, except all our engineers had to go climbing across shipyards to get into the ship while it was in dock in Singapore. But again, I just love the different use cases. It's so much fun,
Elias.
I just can't believe that we're 40 minutes into an NDI panel and no one has said multicast until now. So that's an important point. Like if you've got a lot of monitors, like more than maybe a dozen, definitely think about a multicast network. You have to have the right gear for that, though.
And a network administrator that is willing to do it.
That too.
That's the biggest reason we don't see multicast is because the IT guys in an arena, they always do it. I mean, it's like considered like this is how you get this in a large events. I mean, I've never been to one that wasn't delivering it that way. So it's common, but they're building the network for that one solution. But we find that network administrators, obviously multicast has the potential of doing a lot of damage if it's not administered properly. So there's a lot of resistance.
Or just turned on willy-nilly, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking since Tim is saying he's volunteer lead, I'm thinking that this might be a house of worship that maybe doesn't have the super large budgets. Again, if you've got old PCs that you've decommissioned, to give you an idea of how little system requirements you can need, for a 720p and 1080p feed. I mean, we ran Studio Monitor on some ancient Celerons from 2014, 2015. It was fine. It was fine. We didn't have frame drops.
Finton?
Actually, I wanted to prompt Roberto because we had a discussion with a group earlier in the week about auto discovery and how it announces on the network and for multicast and chatty networks. So some settings advice there, Roberto, on how to set up if we're going to plug lots of devices onto your NDI network. Yeah.
Do you have any guides for us, Roberto?
So this is another area of improvement we are working on, especially because we have setting in an NDI receiver that are not yet displayed. For example, you can define a specific subnet where you want to receive a multicast. This has been documented in the white paper online, but I think we need to make another effort to, provide to the manufacturer the information on how to implement this kind of feature in a easy to use user interface. Today is inside the NDI configuration file. Again, it's documented. There are tools or feature in NDI that we still need to disclose, and it's not because we don't want to do it, it's just question of time.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith from Chautauqua, New York asks, I have 5 NDI cameras, 5 NDI feeds from different computers on the network, and 3 NDI feeds coming in via NDI Bridge. I want to make the workflow more organized and easy to use. Would an NDI discovery server help with this?
Go, Roberto.
NDI discovery server probably will help to speed up the discovery of your source, not using MDNS. But if you want to organize your NDI network, probably the group function is the best option. If you want to learn about group, just check the white paper. There is a very good document that explains grouping in NDI.
Lenny?
I would suggest using Discovery Server. So what we do sometimes is, instead of what Roberto said about using groups is something we do here in our office because it's kind of a set infrastructure, if you will. But when we go to shows and events and things like that, I will have 2 or 3 machines that are running Discovery Server on them. Now, obviously, they can do many other things because it's a very lightweight little application. But by pointing different machines to different Discovery servers, I've kind of segregated them on the network, so that way they can only see what I want them to see, if you will.
Elias?
I've seen other groups do that exact solution. They'll have multiple Discovery servers. I know of one company, they actually reverse engineered the Discovery server, how Discovery Server works, and they wrote their own with access control lists and everything else. It's not I've worked on a little bit of that. It's not terribly complicated. Maybe one day a tool, you could segment your network like that. And in general, using Discovery Server is a good idea too, once you start to get beyond more than a trivial NDI network. And if you're in the cloud, I know Microsoft Azure does not allow multicast by default over virtual networks. AWS, I don't think does as well. So if you're going to be doing NDI in cloud environments, Discovery Server is going to be the way to go. Discovery Server plus groups, you'll be in a pretty happy place.
I'll go, Jeff.
Leave it to me to take it a little bit further. Okay, Discovery Server, first off, groups, if you want to mess with that, I don't. I just put it in a router, and then I use NDI router to put it wherever I need it. And so all sources go into the router, all outputs go into the router, and then all my destinations are wherever I want to go. So the device, the switcher, for instance, if you're using vMix or a Vector or a TriCaster, that's always looking at the router destinations, their outputs. And so you're not missing things or moving things around inside the switcher. All you're doing is looking at the router. And for the one we use is NDI router from Sienna. So I have a macro that I can hit, a salvo that says, okay, change all this over to this set of inputs, goes to this output. So then it goes into the inputs I want on my actual TriCaster at that time. So yeah, router is a great way to organize things too, in groups and such.
Go ahead, Fenton. Nope, can't hear you.
Just add on to that, at some stage you'll probably want to add on a Zoom call as a feed into that as well. And when you do that with things like the TriCaster, you can break out one of the Zooms in as a source on your router and keep it there. And it gives you higher resolution and makes it much more sortable. So there's the router thing gives you further benefits into the future as you get more complex in your workflow.
Next question.
Håkan Fors in Stockholm, Sweden asks, what is your recommendation how to get a remote environment mic into NDI?
Roberto?
NDI free audio. I mean, we develop a very small application. You can get this application today, downloaded the free SDK. And so it's a command line application that works in every platform, can be on Windows, on Mac, on Linux. I use it usually in a Raspberry Pi. And so every audio device that is connected to this small computer then become an audio I/O. It's a command line, so you need to learn how to use it, but it's very simple. I learned how to use it myself, so everybody can do it.
Go ahead, Elias.
Second, free audio, easy command line application to use. I feel like there's a plug here for Mimo Live somewhere, of being able to take a feed in and spit it out as an NDI audio feed. Am I correct, Oliver?
Is that correct, Oliver?
Yeah. So we do not support audio only output for NDI yet. Yet.
Feature request.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
The question didn't actually say audio only, it just said remote mic. So I'm sticking on the remote mic part of this because I just say get the NDI app on your mobile phone and you have an NDI microphone anywhere you have a mobile phone. You're just done. So cheap, quick, nasty.
Next question.
And that works with Mimo Live.
Next question.
Goran from Slovenia asks, which 4-channel SDI to NDI converter for 3-play 3P2 do you recommend? I tried with Birddog 4K quad, but when I am on one of the NDI sources, 3P2 jumps into live mode.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Since it sounds like you're in the broadcast world, if you're using a 3P2, then you're most likely in the broadcast world. My suggestion is, if you want to start at the top, would be the AGA. They call it the Bridge NDI. Lots of inputs, lots of outputs, great device. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but when you add up all the difference of cost of dealing with multiple devices, because it has so much in and out, it's actually a pretty cost-effective solution. You just got to know if it's in your budget or not. The other side of that too is it is one unit, so if you have redundancy, but it's very reliable. And then the other one would be from the VizRT family, which is Connect, and we have several of these boxes ourselves. Is Studio IO or the NC2. We've got the NC1s and NC2s, and those are devices that do the exact same thing. So it brings NDI in, converts it back out. And then lastly would be a new device from VizRT, which is called Tetra. And it's a nice little bitty box-ish kind of thing, small form factor. And that unit will now allow us to bring both 12G in and out of NDI workflows. And you could also use it to convert if you were in that old school SDI world. Like there's a few people left doing that, I think. And then you would just take an NDI, convert it to key fill if you needed graphics. So there's a lot of functionality in that Tetra box. And that's probably, for the bang, I would go that route and leave behind the dogs.
I'll go with Finn.
Yeah, Tetra's got Bridge built into it as well, which is really neat. It's got 12G SDI for such people if they're out there want to play. I would go back to the Azure and say those guys have been rock solid with everything that we've used it for, and I've used it very successfully. And I'd even go back further to your original where you said the Birddog didn't work. Get onto Birddog support. They actually do answer the call, and they might even fix it for you rather than replacing it with something. So Birddog do actually listen.
Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, of course, Mimo Life. So SDI to NDI conversion, it's a little, pick and build it yourself stuff, but it's way cheaper than the thing that was shown on the screen for 14K. Also, we have a feature that's not very common. Is like you can actually put in an SDI key fill signal and convert it into an NDI signal with offer channel. So that's kind of a unique thing.
That's useful. Next question.
Tommy Johnson, St. Paul, Minnesota is asking, are there a nodal and routing programs for NDI and or other network applications? If so, what are they?
Go ahead, Jeff.
One I love, Sienna processing.
I was gonna just throw it and go, Jeff, is it Sienna processor? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know how
it
this
has
works.
some opportunities that you could use it like that. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I just throw it on the screen. Everything is routed. You can see the lines that are pulled together. This is one that we're using at a studio. We're taking in audio from Dante, and then we're mixing it into multiple channels. Each one of these modules is breaking in and out different channels of that audio, sending it out to a destination, which is then embedded and sent out to different Zoom machines. So it's very easy to see the signal flow. That's what I really enjoy about it. Much like I use Symmetrics, so that on the Radius platform, it's very similar where you can see everything where it's going. It's very easy for people to jump in and learn because it just makes visual sense. It's like you're just drawing a signal flow, right?
And I would just like to clarify that this show is not brought to you by Sienna Processor. We don't know them at all.
The next one will.
Yeah, exactly. Next question.
Håkan Fors in Stockholm, Sweden is asking, is NDI Bridge the recommended way to replicate a video router in NDI?
I go to Roberto.
No. NDI Bridge is a free application part of the NDI tools that allow you to interconnect a remote NDI infrastructure and to share NDI stream between different NDI infrastructure. If you are looking for a video router, again, part of the free NDI tools, you will find the NDI router that replicate a video router workflow.
Go to Elias.
If you're looking for a NDI-based router, there's, again, shameless plug time. This was the original use case for me trying to port my NDI library for C# over to Linux. I've got an NDI router, just command line based. Actually, not command line based. It's command line application, but it has an HTTP API, so it can be completely controlled from stuff like Companion. I've got a Companion module in progress for it. One similar use case, though, for NDI Bridge that doesn't always get a lot of love is if you want to convert sources, I believe it has a transcode function as well. It can convert sources from full bandwidth into HX if you want to do that, and it'll do that on your local network. So actually, for the person who asked the question earlier, how to squeeze more bandwidth out of their network, that might be an option to consider. Is take your full bandwidth sources, pump them through NDI Bridge, use that on the local network, and just do transcode that way.
Finton?
Not much detail on what your video router use case is, but a lot of the switcher, the video controllers, the vector, the TriCasters, they all effectively are routers, and multi-viewers all built in as well. Sony are bringing out an NDI video switcher later this year. It'll be an NDI router. So there's lots of things that do NDI routing, but do other stuff as well. But they do NDI routing in the traditional broadcast fashion. I'm going to let Jeff say Sienna because I don't want to as another option. But there's the devil's in the detail on your use case. But and you'll also find again some products coming out from the broadcast space which are, play out and automation tools, you'll find that their internal MAMs and play out and automation actually have routers, or they take router control from a traditional world, and they'll do it because they're now going to turn in native NDI. So you'll find that products actually have router-like functionality just built into them because they need to have it.
Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Does NDI require any special settings on the switch?
Go to Elias.
The short answer is no. The long answer is it depends. For a small proof of concept,
always the long answer is it depends. It all starts there. Then just as long as you want to go. Yeah, go ahead, Elias.
Oh, there's opportunity for a third hour here. I think last time we all met too, it was we talked a lot about this in switches, because the big news was that Netgear had released the 4250, which kind of took all of that. How do we set up our switches the right way for a large NDI network? And the answer became turn on the NDI profile on the 4250 and you're done. So it really depends on what your network and what your NDI network is going to look like. Are you just going to have a couple sources? Then you'll probably get away with whatever infrastructure you're already using, assuming you're not saturating it right now. But if you're going to be building out something equivalent to a broadcast studio on your existing infrastructure, then you need to be having a chat with your IT team about that.
Roberto?
Yeah, I agree with Elias. I would say that, there are few suggestions. First suggestion is oversize your network switch. Just take in account that you are dealing with video over IP, so a lot of data. And then most probably is a good idea to enable flow control, because if you are sure that everything is based on NDI 5 or NDI 6, and so everything is based on reliable UDP, you don't really need flow control. But it's very difficult to know if an hardware encoder is using which kind of protocol is using. So it's a good practice to enable flow control. Avoid to enable jumbo frame that is not friendly with any video over IP technology. And I would say that's it. But, oversizing your network switch is a good idea.
Go ahead, Fintan.
Netgear all year long with the preset. I remember years ago going to a professional camera guy and back in the days with our SLRs and everybody, and he goes, who uses the manual mode? And everybody put their hand up, and he goes, why don't you just put your Nikons and your Canons in automatic? It's probably better than you will do. And in most cases, the Netgear presets will do that for you. The other thing, and I can attest to this because we've got a shed load of Netgears out indoors, outdoors, in humidity, and in really kind of quite difficult and challenging hot, humid environments for a long time for outdoor sports here in the tropics here in Singapore. I am shocked. We started, so yeah, and initially when we designed our systems, we always threw a few extra Netgears in all the bills of materials, figuring we'd be replacing them a year or two in. We're 3 years and going in football stadiums with 300 matches a year in humidity, bulletproof. So either Netgear are over specking their boxes, or they're just really that good. But the settings are great, the boxes are great. So if in doubt, just get a Netgear and use it. In most cases, it's standard NDI settings. It'll just save you an administration headache.
And specifically, you're talking about the Netgear 4250s. I just want to make sure people.
Yes, I am. But they've done the same trick again, actually, because Netgear really stole the market by putting the settings in. They've done it now for with another switch for SMPTE 2110 as well. So these Netgear guys are very clever. I think their stock looks cheap, around $15 actually.
Go ahead, Roberto.
Oh, and by the way, just for fun, the NDI profile in the Netgear switch happened in this Obi-Wan. They ship me few switch, and we spent 1 week working together, and I did all the testing, and we fine-tuned all the setting in the network switch during the pandemic. So is the funny story behind that.
Next question.
Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania asks, how can audio-video sync issues be diagnosed and solved? What are potential causes?
Go, Jeff.
From the start, one of the most potential causes of sync issues is your network, and if you have too much traffic on your network. So that's number one. I have a tool, you may have heard of it, but there's a module in this Sienna processing engine that I keep talking about because it's just like a glue. It's just like the glue that holds all my network and all my NDI together. It's a big rack of tools, and I just love going to that drawer and pulling it out. In it is what's called Sync Palette, and this will blow some of your minds as you bring your video into it, you get your cells and everything, and then you should be able to see that beautiful screen right there. It shows you the delay on every single frame. So then you could go pick off exactly, oh, there it is. And then from that point on, it's in sync because you dial it in. You can see real numbers coming back of what exactly is happening. So that's my go-to when it comes to sync. It's the most accurate.
Go ahead, Elias.
On an SDK level, if you're doing a lot of pixel conversions, you can run into trouble sometimes with audiovisual sync. So for any developers out there, just be careful. Try to keep everything native UI, VY if you can.
What a great hour! As we still had questions left over, but we're out of time. As we warned everybody, when we get this group together, the questions come in. A lot of questions come in, and it's a great conversation. So hopefully, we'll be able to get all of you back again. Maybe I think we need to do this relatively often because we have a lot of people that are trying to learn how to do this, and we love having everybody here as part of this conversation. So we really appreciate all of your time and being willing to jump on and be part of this conversation. We also want to thank the rest of the panelists for the first hour and a bit of the second hour. Thank you to the producers who asked all these great questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but we warned you. We warned you ahead of time. We could see the questions rolling up, and we were like, you got to vote on these questions because we're not going to get to the bottom. So incredible set of questions for a great conversation. Thanks to the producers. And thanks to the incredible team on the back end, the small village that is building the software and hardware, managing the hardware that makes this show happen, that is planning this, supporting people as they arrive, cutting the actual show, thinking about what we have to do 260 times a year, which is the second hour. So we just really appreciate everybody's contribution. Today, if we had walked around, the Tlaloc traversal is if we had walked around and had these conversations in person, we would have traveled 99,000 miles, and that is 159,000 kilometers, and that is 780 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. Well, that was action-packed. Thanks, guys.
Wow, thank you very much. Fantastic.
Awesome
Thank
show.
you.
Yeah,
Man,
really
that
great
was fun.
conversation.
Sienna is
good
not
fun.
the answer to everything.
It is in my world, buddy.
Gives me a change, Jeff.
There's
Every
a,
time.
there's a
Sienna.
commercial. There's a commercial. There's a
what do you
commercial
wanna
there
do?
somewhere. Like, hey, how do I make better eggs? Sienna. This bread is a little flat. Sienna. How do I change my car's oil? Sienna. So anyway. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again. We got to get you guys back. It's really, really great conversation.
Anytime.
All right.
All
right,
Thank
Please.
you. I appreciate it, guys.
Bye.
Great work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.